Okay, let's get started. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at some source material you sent over, excerpts from The Roots of Israel-Iran Conflict.
Hmm.
And, the source itself says its purpose is to cover the origin of the conflict, basically, and give a summary.
Right.
So our job now is to kind of explore what these specific excerpts actually lay out about those origins it talks about.
And it's interesting right away how the source sets it up. It points out that before the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the relationship wasn't really anything like what we see today.
Right, exactly. The excerpt seems to suggest that, back during the Shah's time,
Hmm.
while maybe the diplomatic ties weren't always super open or obvious, there was some pragmatic cooperation.
Shared interests.
Yeah, shared strategic interests in the region. Definitely not the open hostility we have now.
Exactly. Then the source really zeroes in on 1979, the revolution. It makes the case that this event just fundamentally changed Iran, its foreign policy, its whole identity, really, which led to this new ideological view where Israel became, well, a main adversary.
Okay, so the source is basically attributing the change from that earlier sort of practical relationship to the current conflict, mostly to those big ideological shifts in Iran after the revolution. It
Right.
wasn't just a slow drift, according to the source. It was a specific break, a historical rupture.
And the excerpt then goes into, how this new ideology actually turned into concrete policy changes. It talks about Iran openly supporting groups against Israel, developing this regional strategy specifically to challenge Israel's influence.
Right, so the source seems to be really connecting the dots there between Iran's internal politics and ideology and how it projected power outwardly, especially that animosity towards Israel. It links the two directly. Domestic ideology, foreign policy act. And it doesn't just stop at the revolution itself. It sort of paints the following decades as this period where the conflict just kept getting deeper, fueled by, regional rivalries, specific clashes, different alliances with world powers. It frames it as this ongoing escalation, multi-layered tension.
So if we're summarizing what these excerpts say, understanding the roots means starting before the revolution, seeing 1979 as this huge ideological shift,
Yeah, driven by ideology.
and then tracing how that new thinking turned into specific policies and just grew worse over time because of all the regional stuff happening.
Absolutely. And what's quite striking is how the source manages to boil down decades of complex history into these key turning points and ideological forces. It presents a pretty clear story arc, from that complicated, sometimes even cooperative past to the hostility we see now. It really tries to ground the present situation in those specific historical moments. Okay, so wrapping up based on what this source laid out for us today, it really gave us its take on the roots or the origins of the Israel-Iran conflict. Very focused on that pre and post 1979 difference and what drove it.
And, well, thinking bigger picture for a moment, understanding those specific origins, those turning points, in a really complex, long-running conflict like this source tries to do it, gives you vital context for everything that came after. It helps make sense of the path it took, why things look the way they do now, which brings up a good question for you, the listener.
Yeah. How does looking at the specific history and the turning points of a relationship, as laid out in a source like the one we just discussed, actually change how you see its current state?